To begin, let's talk about what drives CCS at its core: research that's grounded in evidence. This year marks the release of a research compendium, Trust-Based Governance, Decriminalization for Development. For many years, India's economic and social life has been shaped by a wide set of rules and regulations. These systems touch the lives of people in countless ways, from how they work and do business to how they connect with the state and with each other. The way these frameworks change over time reflects the larger shifts taking place in our governance and in society. It is with this understanding that our 2025 cohort of Researching Reality scholars, bright young minds mentored by CCS, dedicated months of efforts to studying the system close through fieldwork, examining laws, studying impacts, and cost-benefit analysis. And the outcome of this work is a compendium that identifies 140 legal provisions ready for decriminalization, providing lawmakers with clear and actionable reforms. Now, to set the context for this launch, may I now invite Mr. Nitesh Anand, Senior Fellow at CCS, to deliver the welcome address.
Thank you, Ginny, and welcome everyone. It's good to see so many familiar faces, friends, colleagues, some new faces too, and all the scholars, the students who have actually worked with us last 3 months or more tirelessly. So before we come to the Researching Reality, what we did, I think it's also an honor for me to welcome each one of you today because it's a very special day for us. Even though CCS completed its 28 years on 15th of August, which is our official foundation day, but we are gathered here together with all of you. I can see people from all different sectors, all different spheres who have been part of our journey, including some of our school leaders, school teachers, some of our students, alum, and all together, I'm very confident and very sure that today is going to be a memorable day. We will have lots of fun moments today. There are, in the lineup, there are fun cultural programs planned for you. Then there is also going to be a very interesting lineup of what we call as annual Indian Liberals lecture. So that is something which is scheduled for today from 6:30 to 7:30. And after that, we will also try to honor, recognize some of you who have actually been part of the CCS journey, making it all so special. Let me welcome you once more, and then I will definitely move on to what I am called here for, which is basically to introduce you to the compendium, the research compendium that we have produced this year. So before we go to the research compendium, let me share a little bit about Researching Reality. So Researching Reality is actually CCS's annual flagship summer research internship program, where we bring together the students, recent graduates, scholars from different disciplines from all over the world. And I can very confidently say all over the world because in past there have been some scholars who have been Indians but studying abroad as well, who have been part of our research cohort. They usually stay together for 2 months, 8 to 9 weeks of rigorous research training that is given to them alongside lots of thematic input, which can be different for different years. So that goes in. And then all together, we produce sometimes a compendium like the way we are doing today. Sometimes we produce some research report, and it can be on different topics. So that's how we did it this year as well. So this year, the Researching Reality program was functionally operated from our office from 19th of May to 18th of July. I will share with you that we got a very interesting interdisciplinary mix of students. And I think that's the beauty of a program like this. So even though it's focused on research, the kind of diversity that we have in the group, be them coming from different backgrounds, different educational backgrounds, different geographical localities, but bringing them all together to brainstorm, discuss, go through the rigor together in order to develop this output always makes it very special. So, as you know, this year's theme was basically on trust-based governance. So, if I have to broadly look at Indian governance system, especially when we look at business laws, it is very easily understood that our Indian business governance system is basically operating predominantly on the presumption of guilt. And that is something which we want to challenge from this compendium of ours, that rather than being built on the presumption of guilt, it should be based on the presumption of liberty. And that is what our scholars examined over the last 3 months. So if we can move to the next slide, please. So let me just first start by sharing with you some of the interesting cases that we found. So one very interesting case is that in Maharashtra, if you if you are found to order or sell any misbranded cotton seed, you can actually be imprisoned for 3 years. And that's such a big deterrence for anyone who want to be abiding by law and doing good while also maintaining their basic, simple livelihood. Another example is from Andhra Pradesh, where it criminalizes begging at any public place, where like the first offense can actually be a punishment, an imprisonment of up to 6 months to 2 years. The second offense can make the imprisonment to 2 to 3 years. And third offense can actually make you land in the jail for 3 to 5 years. We all know that we do, probably there can be some people in the room who can think that, yeah, begging doesn't look good as a social activity. But we probably need to think today that, is it a criminal activity? Do we want to send people to jail? And that too for 3 to 5 years. Next, if we will see in Uttar Pradesh, there is a law which basically criminalizes technical molasses management. So, if you will see that on any sugar factory occupier for storage and handling of molasses, including if it's provided for converted accommodation or any safeguard against leakages, there are many criminal penalties that is being put. So based on these cases, this whole theme of researching reality for 2025 was conceptualized, which basically aims to highlight the intersection of laws and economics for sustainable development, aimed at generating evidence for decriminalization for minor business infraction. It also aimed to critically examine economic laws that hinder growth and innovation, aimed at promoting transparent, predictable, and trust-based regulatory environment was a critical part of our researching reality theme this year. We also realized that through this, the idea of encouraging entrepreneurship, job creation, and voluntary compliance would also be encouraged. And it will naturally ease out the judicial burden by reducing minor offenses. And broadly, the whole idea that we are all as Indians are very pumped up about, that is basically the Viksit Bharat 2047 mission. This whole idea of decriminalization actually is in support for that. Next. So the way we did it, basically, we built the foundation first in the students. There were some sessions on policy and research, and we have some of our faculty members also present with us today. Professor Malvika Pal, she ran an interesting and very impressive session on economic analysis in legal policy. Prashant Narang, our own, very own Prashant, he ran a session on legal writing fundamentals. We also have Akanksha with us today in the audience, who is from Technical University of Munich, and she ran a session on legal design. Then there were also some visioning and orientation exercises done by Amit, Dr. Amit Chandra, our CEO. And there were also some orientation about theme, methodology, and the way that different collaboration. There were additionally, after these sessions, there were some thematic sessions which were organized. We had one of our panelists also, whom you will listen to today, Gautam Chikermane from ORF, who did a very in-depth project overview for one of the reports that they produced at their organization called Jailed for Doing Business, so that our students were also exposed at how the similar analysis is being done by different other players in different time constraint. Then from Vidhi Center, we had Akash and Ketki, who ran the sessions for evidence-based legal reforms. Abha Yadav, ma'am from NLS Delhi, she ran a session on economic efficiency and decriminalization of corporate laws. Then again, this next session was from Vidhi on criminal penalties and business laws, especially focused on deterrence theory by Neha Loda and Varsha Banta. And from Department of Promotion of Industries and Internal Trade, Dr. Jivisha Joshi, she was part of the session on ease of doing business and trust-based governance. If I present to you the broader demography of the scholars that we had in this cohort, so we had a total of 22 scholars who completed the program, and more than 2/3 of them were women, and that was like really, really a happy sign to see. 14 of them were women. They came from different disciplines, like even though economics was like around 39% of the students came from economics background, but there were also scholars from different other disciplines like law, political science, history, gender studies, sociology, public policy, and even STEM courses like engineering. So making it a very, very interdisciplinary cohort. And that reflected in the way some of the discussions were happening in the group when they were thinking about not only how the laws were evaluated, but also the way the laws were, like after evaluation, they were put for recommendations. So since like this interdisciplinary group actually came together, there were many innovative ideas in the room to solve the same problem. Even geographically, there was a huge diversity, people coming from all over India, different parts of India, including Jharkhand, Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh, West Bengal, Odisha, Madhya Pradesh, Bihar, Uttar Pradesh, Delhi, and Himachal Pradesh. Next. So the research was basically, this whole process was based on 3 methodological phases. First, in the first phase, the scholar group, they did statute harvesting, where basically a comprehensive repository of business relevant laws from multiple sources including India Code, state law departments, legal databases were collated. They extracted all the provisions imposing criminal sanctions. We divided the whole cohort into 7 specific groups. The first group was looking at the central legislations. The other 6 groups were looking at different states, namely Assam, Andhra Pradesh, Delhi, Rajasthan, Uttar Pradesh, and Maharashtra. So after harvesting all the statutes from different sources, validating it, verifying it, identifying and extracting different criminal provisions in these business laws, then we developed an in-house MCDA scoring method. MCDA is basically a multi-criteria decision-making analysis framework that we have developed in-house, and I will talk about that in the next slide. But that was something which we did, and after that, there were stakeholder engagement, where like our scholars talked to the primary stakeholders, the business people ranging from who were affected from these laws, and then conducted the analysis. After that analysis, they were put through a rigorous 10-principled framework to actually define the recommendations. So if we look at the MCDA framework, there were 8 different criteria within that. Broadly divided, there were 4 criteria which were directly focused on the thematic of business laws, and they had bigger like weightages. The other 4 criteria were primarily looking at the legal design part of it. So they were having, collectively they had 40% of weightage. So these 4 criteria of legal design were drafting clarity, overlap and duplication, procedural complexity, and absence of sunset or any review clause. The thematic criteria were economic impact, sanctions severity, compliance burden, and enforcement frequency. So through this framework, all these laws and their provisions were put through in order to create a quantitative scoring. So at an average, every group, they identified around 80 laws each. So we looked at total 533 laws, out of which for this MCD analysis, 40 laws were put through. And finally, 20 laws were identified, the top 20 laws for each groups were identified, which find space in our compendium, which comprises of 140 laws in total. So next, there were laws from different timelines when it was enacted, from 1870s to the very latest ones in 2023, 2024. Next, then there were also from different sectors, from tax, agriculture and animal husbandry, urban governance, public order and safety, environment and natural sources, corporate and commercial. Next. If we look at the average MCDA score by states, it was very interesting to see that of the top 20 laws, the state which had the highest MCDA score was Delhi. Does that reflect anything? I leave to you to read the compendium and then decide, and probably engage with us for the next round of conversation. Next, we had factor analysis also across states, so like these 8 factors, that 8 criteria that I explained just before. So based on different factors, if you can see that sanction severity and procedural complexities were found to have the highest scoring among the laws that we identified. Next. Then state versus factor heat map was also created. All of that you will find in the compendium. Next. Then the 10 principles that we have put through all these, next please, to the 140 laws through in order to define the recommendations for it. I'll just read it out for them, and that will be probably an interesting background for the panel discussion, and I'm sure that you will all engage with the panelists and the ideas collectively. So the 10 principles that, the lens that we actually put through each of the laws that we identified. First one was presumption of liberty, which basically states that freedom is the default and restrictions require justification at all the ends. Then the principle was, second principle was limited and accountable government. So state power should be constrained and that should be transparent. Rule of law, laws should be clear, stable, and applied equally. Spontaneous order was one of the principles, that social coordination emerges naturally, doesn't require any central planning, and that should be given precedence whenever you are, whenever any policy making system is looking for trust-based governance. Individual agency was one of our other principle, where like the idea is basically that people should be free to make their own choices, and that should be promoted. Next. Then the next one was transparency. I will probably run through because of the time also. Decentralization, power should be distributed at lower levels of government, and decentralization should be reflected in the way laws are created in this country. Voluntary exchange, freedom of expression, and constitutional restraints make the remaining principles. Next. So basically, our reform, so like 140 laws were analyzed, 8 evaluation criteria, 10 liberty principles. Through all that, the approach was basically around industry-led governance. How we can use market-based incentives like certifications, ratings, reputation mechanism instead of criminal penalties. How can private contracts, arbitration, and civil remedies can be brought to the front rather than state coercion. So through that, we actually have come up with this compendium that we will share with you all. And yeah, next. But before I conclude, I will definitely share some of these paintings that were created by our wonderful scholars. So they had just one prompt, which was basically they were given 2.5 hours to think and paint their idea of decriminalization. What do they understand about that? So this was the one on the left is basically a painting by the central team. And they actually titled it as "Trust is nurtured when the law is upheld with integrity rather than misuse as leverage." The one on the right is basically on an illustration which was created by Maharashtra team titled "The Burden of Justice." Next. We have the next one on the left from the Rajasthan team. They tried to weigh the scales of justice through the lens of decriminalization through this illustration. Then the Uttar Pradesh team created this, the other beautiful one, which is basically their expression of the steep ladder of compliance for everyday business. Next. Yeah. Then the Andhra Pradesh team, they created this illustration on the left on ease of doing business for vendors and role of decriminalization in enabling their livelihood. The next one is basically from the Delhi team, which actually used to illustrate a different basically opportunities and over-regulation burdens that map them by illustrating this freehand painting. And that's where and the last one is basically a very beautiful one from the Assam team titled "Public Consultation as the Cornerstone of Trust and Governance." So with that, I would like to close my introduction to the compendium and the research that we have conducted over the last 3 months. And then I welcome you once again to engage further on the topic through the next couple of hours, and then join us for the subsequent part of our celebration. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nitesh, for reminding us the purpose and power of this work. It is now my privilege to welcome Dr. Jivisha Joshi, who serves as a Deputy Secretary at the Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade under the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, Government of India. She holds a bachelor's degree in dental surgery and a master's degree in psychology. In her capacity as Deputy Secretary in the Logistics Division at DPIIT, Dr. Joshi has been actively engaged in key initiatives. Notably, she has discussed and contributed to the development of the Unified Logistics Interface Platform and addressing 107 logistics bottlenecks at Indian ports, focusing on improving last-mile rail and road connectivity as a part of the National Logistics Policy. Please join me in welcoming her.
Hi, good afternoon, and thank you everyone for having me. I must congratulate you all because it's a culmination of a huge effort which has taken over past few months, and I've been lucky enough to be the part of this whole initiative. I have addressed all the students once, and DPIT has also hosted them once in the ministry. And what we have realized that it has been a very enriching experience. I think youth being responsible, understanding both the sides of the law and how it is important to have rationalization when it comes to legality of all the laws which are being made, which is a daily procedure. Any country will have introduction of new laws all the time, and it's very important and it's very heartening to see that the students who were here for a few months, they were able to look at all the sides of a particular law, how they are coming up, what has happened in the past, and what lies in the future. As has also been mentioned, I have been working in DPIT, and one of my work profile includes Jan Vishwas bill, which has recently been tabled on Monday in Lok Sabha as well. This time we have looked at 355 laws under various acts of almost 10 ministries, and we are looking at decriminalization, and a lot of new things have also come up, which is for the first time, which has been introduced in the bill. One of the most important things which has come is a warning provision, where around 76 crimes have been recognized, where we would like to start with just a warning or an improvement notice, and thus passing on the responsibility on the citizen, at the same time trusting them for doing the right thing, and considering that the first can be a mistake as well. So this is an interesting way of also, sharing the responsibility between the government and the one who are being governed. And we hope that as we evolve and as we move towards being Viksit Bharat by 2047, we will each hold our responsibility in a very, we take our, rights and duties in a very important manner. The good part is that the bill has been referred to select committee. So I'll also request that all the members who are here today, feel free to share your opinions. We hope to come back to Parliament on the first day of the winter session. So if you have anything, if you think that there is more which can be done, if there are more provisions which you still think that, which can be introduced, we'll be very happy and open to have them. Ministry has been, the idea and why we are looking at this subject at all, while we have a legislative ministry and a, law and justice department in the country, was because the idea originated some years back when we came out with, almost 2 years before when we did Jan Vishwas 1. And it all started with the fact that are we over-criminalizing our laws? Are we still having, one part is having archaic law, which is something else, because all the countries which share the burden of being colonized by any country do have some laws which were made by them, and they have continued even after they have gained independence, and they were all busy and involved in other parts. But then there was also the fact that the new laws which have come have also looked at the legal system in a very different way. And during this whole process, we have also tried to study, the global best practices. What are we doing? How are we doing? And things are very interesting. If you look at the Companies Act specifically, if you look at Indian Company Act, if you look at the UK's Company Act, you will realize that they are almost same. In fact, the criminal penalties in UK Company Act are far more. Then why, as a country, are we even looking at decriminalization? And the fact was that the problem is in the execution. The problem is that sometimes in a country which is so huge, discretion can increase many-fold. And that is when we want to understand that, maybe it's also the time not just to look at the global best practices, but to create our own best practices. So OECD group of countries look at regulatory reform as one of the major criteria, and they are talking about proportional criminality of laws. And that is what we were also looking at. Now, proportional criminality is a subjective thing and can vary from country to country. So while we come up with a law where we say that, now if you destroy a lamppost, I'm going to give you a warning, the hope is not that now everybody will be indulging in the same and using a cricket ball to destroy the lamppost. But the idea is that if it has, been done by mistake, the citizen is aware that it was a mistake, and at the same time, the person is not troubled for such I mean, I should not say it a trivial, because from the other angle, you look at, that the city and how the surroundings are, and are we providing good enough living space when we are growing, because that's a continuous debate. But the idea is to balance. And again, coming back to the discussion of proportionate responsibility, proportionate criminality of laws. So what may be a global best practice might not be the correct practice for me in the country. These were the ideas, and I think, and it is easy to say because I am the speaker, that we have been very open while we were having these debates, and we've tried to welcome all the initiatives at all the level, whether it's Honorable Minister or Honorable PM's office or Secretary's office or ours. But since the process is still on and we do want to do more, we do understand that this is not the end. And rather than one thing can be a continuous exercise as to we keep coming with JV bills. But then at the same time, we are also now thinking about a bigger idea, because you see, we decriminalize on one hand, and if we come out with a new law which again introduce some criminal provision, then where are we really going? How long are we going to do this? So maybe it is also time to come up and think about how we can restrain when we are coming up with new laws. And again, if you look at the world for the examples, various countries have come up with various kind of solutions where you have to justify when you come up with a law and all. So one very interesting thing which has happened in just past few weeks, few weeks back, is that now if in a country at central level, if you're going to come up with any cabinet note, you have to add an annexure where you talk about what has been criminalized, how is it going to affect ease of doing business in the country, and how is it going to affect ease of living in the country. So this in a way will catch and capture any new law which is trying to over-criminalize things again. So we are looking at our own innovative solutions, and we're also thinking as to can we introduce something in legislative ministry as well, because all the bills at the end do go there. So maybe in their recommendation they should also have a pager saying that you need to go back, rather than just making a bill or drafting it legally or correcting the legal language and telling the correct provisions. They may also look into the fact that is it going to over-criminalize. And then DPIT always exists. Everything can get marked to us, and we are happy to sort of get into it and come back. But leaving what we have been doing, I must congratulate each team who has worked really hard on all the states, and the deregulation cell in the country is also going around states, and a lot of states are already coming up with Jan Vishwas bill. They've taken up the name, but the idea is decriminalizing itself. Tripura has already done it. Chhattisgarh has already done it, MP has already done it, MP is coming with a second bill, UP, Maharashtra are in very, very advanced stages of coming up with bill. I think even once you go back to your respective organizations, your colleges, I think it will be a very good idea to be involved in this exercise, because a lot is going to happen in coming 6 to 10 months, and you're going to see real impactful changes on the ground. So please do share your recommendation with us. We'll be happy to forward it to states as well, and we'll be working more and more with Nitesh and his team as well to take this forward. With this, I would like to just congratulate you all, and thank you for having us. Wishing you all the best for future. Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Divisha, for your insightful address. We are grateful for your continued leadership and contribution. I would also request Dr. Divisha to kindly be on stage again, and I'll invite Dr. Amit Chandra to felicitate her.
You scared me कि मुझे फिर से बैठाना.
Yeah, go. All yours.
We now arrive at a very special moment of the evening, the launch of the annual Researching Reality Compendium. This compendium is the culmination of months of effort of our Researching Reality scholars, capturing their fieldwork, insights, and analysis on what trust-based governance and decriminalization for development mean? It represents not just academic research, but the lived engagement of young scholars with policymakers, regulators, and communities.
May I now invite on stage Dr. Amit Chandra, Mr. Nitesh, and our esteemed guest, Dr. Jivisha, as well as our panelists for the day, Dr. Gautam, Dr. Neeti, Dr. Renuka, and Ms. Swikruti for the formal release of the compendium. It will be an honor to have you on stage.
It's okay.
Guys, we are extremely glad that you all joined us for this occasion. Can we have a huge round of applause for everyone who contributed to this compendium?
We now turn to our panel discussion on the theme Decriminalization for Development. To lead the discussion, I invite our moderator, Dr. Amit Chandra, the CEO of CCS, to join us on stage. And I also have the honor of introducing our distinguished panelist, Dr. Neeti Shikha, Faculty of Corporate Law at the University of the West of England. Dr. Shikha's research and teaching focus on corporate law, governance, and regulatory design has been instrumental in incorporating our Researching Reality program. She holds a doctorate in corporate governance and an LLM from University College London, and she has published extensively with 2 books and numerous articles to her name.
We welcome you, ma'am. On our panel, we also have today Mr. Gautam Chikermane, Vice President of the Observer Research Foundation, a senior journalist and policy commentator. Sir has written extensively on governance, economics, and regulation. He has also been a key voice behind ORS study on Jail for Doing Business report, which documented the criminalization of India's business laws and shaped the national conversation on decriminalization. And as we said, sir was also part of our CCS program where he guided us. We are glad to have you, sir, here today with us. Guys, can we have a huge round of applause for sir? Today, we also have with us Dr. Renuka Sane, economist and co-founder of Trustbridge. Dr. Renuka. Dr. Renuka.
Check.
Yeah. Dr. Renuka is a leading voice on financial regulation and household finance. Having shaped debates on pensions, inclusion, and regulatory frameworks during her tenure at NIPFP. Her work continues to influence policy design for stronger financial systems and greater citizen-state trust. We are glad to have you, ma'am, today on this panel.
Lastly, we have Ms. Swikruti Mohanty. She is currently a NextGen fellow at our Center for Civil Society. And she was also part of our Researching Reality program as one of our fellows. And She is also an assistant curator of our compendium this far. Swikruti was also, she has done her BBA LLB from National Law University, Orissa, and she brings a strong legal background with research interest in competition law, tech policy, and structural legal program. Her work bridges this training in law, and with her hands-on experience in regulatory governance, she brings a stream of experience to this panel. Let us have a big round of applause for all the panelists here today. Moving forward, Amit, please take over. Thank you.
Thank you, Lavanya. So now I'm in charge for next 1 hour, and my job is very simple, and I will keep it simple for everyone. The way I want to do this is divide in 3 rounds of 3 minutes time for each of the panelists. So with 4 speakers, we'll have roughly, let's say, 40 minutes, and then we can also keep the last 10-15 minutes as a Q&A, so we can also take questions. How I would like to conduct this discussion and also keep the focus straight is, I think there has already been enough talking, writing about what is the subject that we are talking about. It's the trust-based governance. But I think over a period of time, we need to keep reminding ourselves and people in large is why there is so urgency and what will happen if we don't do this, and how part of it. Because I think that the devil is in that level of detailing as to how do we get it. Otherwise, sometimes we might be still doing something wrong and not be progressing. And therefore, 3 rounds of we can have talking. And in the first round specifically, I would like that people can specifically identify more on why it is required and how. In the second round, I will put some of my questions. And third, if then panel could be also be free to have a round of cross questions and learn from each other before we open for the audience. Renuka, do you think we can start from you, because you have already been writing quite a bit on the subject? Gautam has already vetoed. Gautam has already vetoed. He wants to be the last one to speak on the subject. It should work. It's working.
Okay, thank you, Amit, and thank you for having me here. I think anyone who lives in India and does business in India instinctively and intuitively knows why some of this is important, right? So even in our lived experience, for example, I am not sure how many laws we are breaking in just the act of living in India. And so if you are looking at, we are a country that needs significant GDP growth, even relative to where we are now. We've done well for the last few years, but we need to do better. We've seen, for example, that private capex is not as high as it should be. We've seen trouble in credit markets, burgeoning trouble in credit markets at the moment. And all of this, multiple things suggest that while we are not too bad, we could always be better. And one of the reasons, as Gautam's work and many other people's work has identified, is the complexity of the legal environment and the business environment in India, and the regulatory environment in India. And in field after field, we have seen that this causes both problems when investments occur, and this causes problems when businesses have to expand or new things have to be started. So I think the why of this question is pretty obvious. We certainly need a change. I think your question on how do we get there is an important one, but I'm sure that nobody in this room needs much convincing on why it is that these kinds of questions are important.
So yeah, firstly, I would like to extend a disclaimer that I am the youngest of the panelists and the least experienced. So apologies if I make any kind of outrageous remarks here. But okay, coming to the why of the trust-based governance, I would like to paint a imagery here. So for me, it feels like picture a conveyor belt, and I feel we are the citizens are being put on the conveyor belt, and it's the government that's putting the stamp, and that's in the form of licensing or any kind of registration. So we are sort of like these mindless objects that are being put on a conveyor belt and being placed from one place to move from one place to another, and we do not understand exactly what are the implications that we are going to face on that and how is it going to benefit us. And one day I feel there'll be a day when the conveyor belt breaks down, and that would just lead to utter chaos and anarchy. So before that, I feel since everybody here is working towards the betterment of the citizens, right? The government is here for the citizen. So I feel it should be the citizens that need to be more proactive, and they need to understand what is happening around them and how they can be benefited the most. And for that, they need to understand. And like ma'am mentioned here, that the legal jargons and everything, it's too complicated. It's like we are in a loop continuously going to, oh, you know what, the government released this notification today, the government released that order today, and it's very difficult for us to follow as layman. And ma'am is talking about capex and all. It's very technical, and it's for the big businessman and all. But think about a common farmer or a local, very small MSME or some small-time businessman. Imagine how difficult would it be for them to follow. So answering your first part, I feel that's why we need a trust-based governance to inculcate that trust in the people that are being governed. And then coming to the how part, I feel all of the people sitting here, they have somehow or the other contributed to it in one form or the other. I have been working on it for the past 3 months. So I feel, again, decriminalization, yes, but the goal should be to make the reforms and all the compliances that are being imposed on the citizens as simple as possible. If something can be done without the need of a compliance, then that compliance should be removed. So yeah, that's from my side.
Sure. Thank you. MP?
Oh, I have one here. Thank you.
We'll start with
That's okay. I'll just use this. Thank you, Amit, Renuka, and Swikruti for your comments. I worked in India for many, many years before I moved to the UK and lived there for 4 years. I'll just give you an example. Whenever somebody visits Bristol, I take them to this beautiful city of Bath, which is 20 minutes drive from my house. And there's a place called Castle Combe. I saw something in Castle Combe and in Bath as well. There was a small shop, like a pastry coffee shop. There's no man or woman to run it. It operates out of window. These two things I saw in both the cities, and more prominently in Castle Combe because it's a very small town. And there was a caption board written, "This shop runs on trust." The prices are written, people pop in the money through a small door keyhole, and they pick what they want. There's no checks on that. And it has been working. I'm sure the business has not suffered because the shop still exists. Now, when I saw that, I was really filled with pride that if we talk trust in a society, not just in market in particular, that is the kind of trust we're talking about. Now, why we need trust? Trust is the premise not only for a market, but even for any civil society. Trust in regulators, trust in laws, trust in individuals. I happen to be the founding head for the Center for Insolvency and Bankruptcy at the Ministry. And, I found that the main challenge there was lack of trust. Promoters, when the hands were changing, promoters did not have trust in, the new IP being in, taking charge of the company. So I think, and people who went to court did not have trust in the court system. And where we started developing trust, there'll be a different judgment coming from court, which will just change the whole course of law. We need to have trust not just for good society, as I mentioned, but also for predictability, which is again the very premise of a sound economy. So trust is needed for society, for a strong economy, because it gives predictability. We talk about ease of doing business. I happen to be part of the new report as an expert, which is replacing EODB report, which is called Business Enabling Environment at the World Bank. And now what they're talking about is how you make sure that the laws enable business. Laws do not enable business by creating a very deterrent sort of approach where business is scared to talk to you. My dear friend, Dr. Abhay Yadav is sitting here. She was the founding director of the FOIR. Something that the current government started, in the first term, I guess, where they said regulators should talk to each other. I mean, it's important not just that people should talk to each other, people talk to the regulators, but also regulators talking to it. So this government has done some really marvelous sort of structural, at least visioned the structural reform. Now execution is our Achilles heel, as we see, and I mean, Gautam as an expert sitting here would speak more on that, can enlighten us on that, but there has been a vision. So how do we do it? Communication is the first step. You need to communicate. Regulators should not be seen as a scary souls, but rather somebody you could approach to, write to. When I'm in the UK and I have any doubts with HMRC, anything of that sort, I write to them and I get a response. Even if I'm wrong, I mean, the communication is clear, I need to pay a penalty, that's fine. But at least I can speak with them. So I think this kind of, trust building through communication is at the very core of, changing the, or rather I'll say shifting the society from criminality to trust-based. तो विश्वास जगाना है जनता में तो आपको एक संचार का माध्यम खोलना पड़ेगा, whether it's through, and people can do it. There are a lot of AIs now, at least in the UK I can tell you, in the policy space, UK government is using a lot of AI bot-based policies where, we use that. Now having said that, I do have reservations as a legal scholar as to should we decriminalize all the business laws? No. As both of you rightly pointed, it's the problem with the MSMEs and the small entrepreneurs that face more. At the same time, Singapore and UK has taken a risk-based approach. So now that everything, if you look at the money laundering laws in the UK, it's becoming very draconian, and there is a very severe penalty. So, which means that they have criminalized what needs to be criminalized, but not something so operational, like non-compliance of a particular law. And we had somebody from the ministry say that first time it could be an error. So I think this is a good approach because it'll start building the trust among people that there is a chance to fault and you'll not be penalized for taking that kind of. At the same time, I think government has to parallelly develop a system where these defaulters are coached. Like in insolvency, I can tell you, like personal insolvency, we have money advisors in the UK. आप bankrupt हो जाते हैं, कोई बात नहीं, you'll have advisors. But आपको उसके साथ coaching दी जाती है. I'm working on something with insolvency services in the UK where we're working on the director's education. Director गलती करता है, कोई बात नहीं है, but what's the next step? So we did a research paper on director's education to make a behavior change. तो वो अब वहाँ की जो Department of Business and Trade है उसको we're trying to put it in the policy. So the point I'm trying to make is that we can't see in isolation. We have to make sure that it is padded with a lot of checks and balances within the system. I think I'll stop here because we have a great man sitting next to me. Gautam comes with great experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Neeti.
Namaskar, and this is the first part is why we need it, right?
Why and how, yeah.
So most of it has been covered by them. Parts of it have been covered by our report, Jailed for Doing Business. Read it if you get the time, otherwise I'm sure this report will have instant. I want to add two more perspectives to why we need to do it, why we need to do it now, and why we need to do it yesterday. First thing is that since 20th January, the geopolitical headwinds across the world for any economy, for every business person, in any industry, have multiplied. It's almost like a tectonic shift. And we are returning to something beyond the international rules-based order. We are returning to 1945, where power determined the way you would do business, the way you would engage with countries, the way you would tariff, and so on. The country that has led the international rules-based order is now guilty of breaking it, rubbishing it, turning it into rubble. Until yesterday, until 19th January 2025, the biggest rogue in the world was China. Today, that position has moved on to the United States. For India, this is a double whammy. So on one side, we have an enemy at the border. We don't call it an enemy, but as we all know, I'm not in government, so I can speak more freely. So we have an enemy at the border. And across the world, on the other side of the globe, we have an aggressive, megalomaniac person who is attempting to politicize his constituents into something called America First, while within the next 3 months, in my assessment, you will see the difficulties of high tariffs and how inflation is going to impact his country people, America First, so to speak. So I think these headwinds are here. To me, this looks like a 1991 moment. In 1991, we had the macroeconomic crisis. Today, we have a macro geopolitical crisis. So I think we need to address it with all the energy that we have. Some of that energy began with our small report called Jailed for Doing Business. Jan Vishwas 1 and 2 are a product of that. They are not enough. In my opinion, they may be a good structure to start with, which is what Jan Vishwas 1 was all about. And I was expecting far more action in Jan Vishwas 2. I'm very disappointed. But I still need to read the fine print, so please don't take it as the last word yet. The second reason why we need to do it yesterday is because across the world, and let's talk about just two major democratic jurisdictions. One is the United States, and the other is Europe. China is on its own planet yet. In these two jurisdictions, what we are seeing, what I have been seeing, I've been to Brussels, Helsinki, everywhere. What I'm noticing is that the United States, through DOGE, is doing business, bringing efficiencies into its governance structures at a very fast, intense pace. So if Trump is hurting the international rules-based order, he's equally hurting the domestic ceteris paribus. He's changing all that. The status quo is being diminished, questioned, under the spotlight. If America does what in spirit Donald Trump wants to do, which is to make doing business in America easier, then why on earth would any capital, global capital, stay in any jurisdiction when it has access to the world's largest market, to the world's most profitable valuations, to the world's most accessible venture funding or finance, the highly sophisticated funding avenues that are available? Why would any entrepreneur waste his time in India or any other country? I talk about India, so it's a direct threat to our capital, our not only just physical capital, but the capital of the entrepreneur, knowledge capital, if doing business in America becomes significantly easier. In Europe, at one of this Brussels conference, the Prime Minister of Belgium was there, and the CEO of one of the largest chemicals company said that they face regulations of 15,000 pages every year. They have to fill 15,000 pages of regulatory, which she didn't say nonsense, but a lot of overreach over there. They are trying to fix that, and they have also begun on this journey. Now imagine if Europe also becomes more competitive. It is not competitive today. It's as bad as India, minus the corruption. But in Europe also, I have seen entrepreneurs who they make their products in India, in Europe, in Germany, France, Italy. They're financed by their domestic constituents. The product is built out there, the teams are built out there, the company is registered in Europe, but the moment they attain scale of beyond $500,000, they fly to America, because that's where that risk capital that I was talking about, and the market access, and the vision that you don't need a return in 18 months, but maybe 10 years, we are willing to take that risk on that capital, they go there. In India, several products are being made in our Indian labs. The moment they are financed by highly patriotic Indians. But the moment that, so it's made in, it's Indian capital financing Indian products by Indian entrepreneurs registered in India. But the moment the product is ready, the next board meeting seeks that they should have the intellectual property either in Singapore or in some other country, because our intellectual property rules, laws are very weak, and doing business very becomes a high-risk stake the moment a product that can do something significantly is available. So I think doing all of these, by the way, the government is addressing. Perhaps as scholars where we don't have much stake other than to write reports and dream up efficiency things in what we consider in our minds a perfect world, is not how politicians think. For instance, 70% of all the criminalized criminal provisions in Indian laws, out of the 26,134 that we counted, come from the Factories Act. Now, in order to amend the Factories Act, the process is on through the, or maybe, am I jumping the gun? Is that the how? That's the how of your question. This is the why. I was talking about the why. I think I got carried away. I think we'll come to the how. And so I think these two threats, the geopolitical threats, other than what has already been mentioned by them, and basic freedom, just the concept of being free. We are politically free, but economically still enslaved by a petty bureaucrat who can come in and just shut down your factory, is the most ridiculous thing that the world's fastest growing economy can face. We should be growing in real terms in double digits. 6.5 is not, India can do much better. So I think these are the reasons why we need to have this. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Gautam. And I think this is what exactly I was thinking about it. I mean, we have been talking about these reform ideas, right? We know it is important, but what is this urgency? And I also see three folds, actually. One is certainly as the geopolitical situation that you have mentioned, and that is going to push it more. But something I also kind of observe as a consumer of all of these regulation, or just a student who is trying to make sense of where the public policy segment is moving, is I find it great that in some sense now we have some target and vision, right? And that vision is by 2047 developed India. It's a clear vision, right? I see it's good to have that target first. And now that we know if this is the target, it requires high economic growth. And with the pace we are moving, we are not going to get it, right? And therefore it pushes all the policymakers and institutions and enablers to think about it and question, is this how we want to move? And therefore we can reach there or not? So one is the geopolitical, second is the target, and third is basically thinking from economic freedom perspective. It is not that there are some provisions of almost everything has to be regulated, and bargain is which one you can rationalize, which one you cannot rationalize. And therefore it brings back to the principle-based approach to think about decriminalization. However, now there's two important things I want to get done, and I don't know if we are doing so good in terms of time management, but we'll cover on this. Is one, for the benefit of the audience, I would like Swikruti, Gautam, Renuka, Neeti, because all of you have been kind of practitioners and reading laws, like give us a few examples of the most weird laws or provisions that you have encountered and you think, you know, this cannot just stay, does not make sense, anything. So a few of the glaring examples. And third and final thing is barriers. Why things are not moving, why it took so much time for Jan Viswas Bill, the first version of it and the second version of it, and yet there is a lot of disappointment. Why are we not able to fast catch up? Because once again, I'll go by this, and I see some moments happening. It's my own understanding with the Deregulation Commission or GST 2.0, etc., because now you have to be globally competitive. And with this kind of tariff, you know, it will be hard to compete in the global market. And may I go this time in the reverse order, so starting from Gautam?
Yeah, so if you want a list of ridiculous laws, here they go. If you don't lime wash the inside walls of the toilets once every 3 months, you can be jailed for 2 years. If you don't give the exact labels of women's toilets and men's toilets, you can be jailed for 18 months. If you don't put a spittoon within a certain distance of the plant where the workers are, you can be jailed for something, I think again 2 years. If you don't reconstitute the canteen committee every 2 years, despite the canteen contractor giving you great food, you can be jailed for as much, which is the equivalent of sedition, and so on. So I can go on. And our report, just if you want to have fun, read the appendix 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 of our Jailed for Doing Business report. Download it, you can do it on see it on your phones right now. But more importantly, what I observed was that I think most of these laws, rules, regulations, and jail terms were put as by what is known as by default. I don't think much thought went into it. If this law says this, and we are putting, let us say, the weights and, not weights and measures, the, what's the new, the equivalent of the weights and measures, it's slipping my mind right now. So we just copy paste that thing. Or if you mislabel a gas, for instance, we just copy paste. By the way, mislabeling gas in plants has a 10-year imprisonment term. So with the moment there's a blind copy paste, zero application of mind. Let me give you one example. In the rules in the Weights and Measures Act used to be, you have to write maximum retail price of every product on the product. 2 young entrepreneurs in Andhra Pradesh wrote MRP. What happened? They were jailed. It took the Andhra Pradesh High Court to say that this is that MRP is okay. I think it was in 1982 or 84, I don't remember which year. And since then, MRP, as we know it, has become acceptable rather than writing maximum retail price. Stuff like this, there is innumerable examples of this. So you wanted a list of
yeah, some weird laws.
So I think this is the weird factor is there. The second part you wanted was
barriers. Where are things stuck? I mean, it has been some time since
you mentioned report. You said that it has taken a long time for Jan Vishwas 1 to come up. Yeah. I disagree with you. Okay. It has taken a long time in a 79-year history of India. True. It has taken a long time since 1991. True. Okay, so 1991 changed the direction, but not the action at the ground level. But if you see that Jailed for Doing Business report, exactly within 1 year, this law was out. So I think the government is, in fact, the day we published the report, next day we got a call from PMO saying that we should make presentations here and there. Niti Aayog formed a committee, we were members there, cabinet secretary, etc., etc. So I think the political import of these changes are very much there with Prime Minister Narendra Modi. I'm not talking about any other minister, and I'm not talking about any other ministry. I'm not even talking about DPIIT. I've been in this ministry trying to, as part of Jan Vishwas 1. But Prime Minister Narendra Modi, from my personal example, has been the key, decisive director of these changes. But after that direction has been given, the down the line, the message seems to be getting lost. That is my assessment. And I think after this Trump, I don't have enough adjectives, but after the non-tariff nonsense that Trump is now doing, the government seems to be more open to changes. Jan Vishwas 2 was in the offing. It's not good enough. So perhaps Jan Vishwas 3, I mean, we can only hope. And frankly, none of us here are policymakers. We are just researchers. Our job is to research and hand it over to the to the executors to do. If they don't do it, so be it. They face voters, we don't. We only face each other. This is not good enough, that fine print is wrong, this is incomplete, etc., etc. But the class that actually faces the voters, who faces the entrepreneurs, and they have their own motivations, is now finally, to me, perhaps getting its act together after this. So I think now, again, it's a hope, but I also sense it in the air that it's going to move faster.
Sure. Thank you, Gautam. And by the barriers, basically, I wanted to identify, and in no way I meant, since your report publication, I meant that it took some time for the country to
Nobody had the data,
realize.
bhai. We were the guys who created the data. So you cannot even accuse the government of not
100%.
doing, because you cannot do segregated ministry, 3 imprisonment clauses here, 5 over there. We gave them the entire list
Perfect.
of 26,134.
Yes.
Despite that, if that's not done, then I feel there are these.
Certainly. And now I too quite a bit agree that this is our second big movement since 1991 reform. And somehow, once again, I can be wrong, but my understanding is in India, nothing moves until there is some force, some compulsion. I so far have failed to understand that the 91 reform was done under conviction. And therefore, this force which is coming, which is kind of pushing us to make things faster. And I do believe that we possibly have the right person who can actually drive these changes. But once again, moving back to my other panelists, Neeti and Renuka, and then Swikruti, from your experience, any weird law that you want to give as an example, and why, if you identify some barriers in terms of making this reality. Yes, please.
So Gautam has given great list of laws. I think I'll spare that part. There are a few, like how your number plates on the car should be painted, but I'll spare that part. I think what I would like to share with the audience is that this whole conversation started in the UK, many years ago, when a study from Cambridge University showed that criminalization really does not help corporations because the acquittal rate's very high. And let me just give you some the reasons behind why we need to decriminalize. One aspect is enable business. The other aspect is, does it really work on the ground? So the study by some scholars in the UK found out that the burden of proof is very high when a law is criminal in nature, because it has to be beyond reasonable doubt. And when the case goes to the court, then even if it's an iota of doubt, the person gets scot-free. So the next question was, then what should we do? If the criminality does not act as deterrence, what should we do? The scholars suggested that what hurts corporations more is putting a monetary penalty. So if you look at the UK laws and the US laws, the monetary penalty on the companies are very high. So for example, if there is, I was looking at some laws in the morning, because one of the things JV2 not did was looking at the Drugs Act. So usme penalty 30,000 tak ki hai. I may be wrong, but that's what some of the provision has been replaced with. In the UK in the US for the similar breach, the penalty could be compounded as in the proportionality of the net profit that the company earns. So the monetary penalty would hurt them more, and it could be as compounding as in proportionality to the overall profit that the company makes. And that, the scholars felt, would hurt company more. So the idea was how to discipline them, how to deter them from wrongdoings. It's not the criminal sanctions because it doesn't work. The burden of proof is very high. Courts are swarmed with cases, most often than not. Directors or the entrepreneurs, if they really had the mala fide, unless you prove beyond reasonable doubt, they will not be put to task. Now, I have a couple of caveats here, and maybe because I'm a lawyer, I feel that it's very good to decriminalize it. Yes, it should. Now, in certain cases, what I see, the current bill will have to give more thinking. Why it has taken for so long? Gautam rightly said, you need to give data. And also, I think you need to get some, multidisciplinary policy makers. It cannot just be a set of economists looking at the law or the lawyers looking at, because these are business laws. And then when you look at the creation of sanctions, you need to have a behavioral economist who can really think through what works with the people. Now, I feel that if in Drugs Act, if there is a breach of a nature that causes death, which is may not be culpable homicide, but has cost life, the imprisonment would be but then should it be under Drugs Act is the question. Maybe not, they could look into IPC and bring the case there if the culpability could be proven. If the culpability is still not proven, maybe a fine of a compounding nature which acts as a deterrent has to be there. So my limited submission is that we have to move with a caveat. You look at the laws, mere compliance and jail for that I don't have a better word than saying it's nonsensical, because it really deters entrepreneurship. However, looking at the nature of the crime, if it's not mere compliance. Now, looking at the solution perspective, how could it be? One way we could do is opt-in provision. We say that copy-paste ho raha hai. People, what we are doing, at least in the insolvency spaces, that is a default opt-in. And if people want to opt out, they can opt out. For example, there's a suggestion that you give, you let them, for first offense, you let them default opt-in for all those entrepreneurs who made that, and then make some behavioral change educational training for them. So I'm just trying to suggest that more thinking needs to go in while we decriminalize. That's the first step that we do. That is the important step. But also important is to think through what would an ideal utopic world should look like. And I totally agree with what the keynote speaker said, that we have to have an indigenous solution for that. It cannot be a copy-paste from other system, because the trust has been generated over the years. Now look at the Arbitration Act. That is based on trust. It's a commercial dispute based on trust. But New York Convention took many, many years to get enforced, because mere getting an arbitral award, unless the court sanction, does not hold true. So kahin na kahin wo court ka aapko wo chahiye hota hai. A lot of learning has to be done by court also, to give a unified direction the judgments mein. Abhi kya ho raha hai? Different at least in business insolvency, I can say different types of judgments which really, you take one step forward, you take 10 steps backward with the next judgment that's coming. So a consistency, predictability, not only in laws but also in interpretation of law, that is important. And interpretation from who? By the courts. So I'll just rest here.
Thanks. I think what I would like to ask is, how is it that we got here? And I have a couple of things to say. Why is it that we have so many criminal provisions on seemingly nonsensical things? Okay, and I do want to caveat that, of course, we need some sanctions, and we need to have a theory of what that sanction should be, what is the deterrent effect we want, and what is it that is actually an offense. That requires a lot of work in whichever space you are in. That said, there are certain things like, the ones that Gautam has mentioned, for example, that today they seem quite nonsensical to us. And despite that, it's worth figuring out why is it that they were put in place in the first place. Possibility one, that was a copy-paste and we didn't think about it and it's all there. But possibility two, and for certain things it may be that because we know that our ability to enforce anything is so poor, that we decided to have a criminal sanction. saying, check bouncing, take check bouncing as well, right? Why is it a criminal offense? Why is there a jail term for check bouncing? You should have had a bankruptcy procedure, or you should have had some insolvency procedure, some debt collection procedure for you to deal with check bouncing. But you've made it a criminal offense. Why have you done that? Because you have no ability to actually do the debt collection. And that's why you ended up with a criminal provision. And I think that on various issues like that, it is useful for us to pause and think that what about our current regulatory machinery or enforcement machinery is broken, that we end up with these criminal sanctions. And of course, there are many bad consequences of criminal sanctions. And I mean, I have no debate on that. But what I'm trying to get at is that we also need to, as we expand from the utterly ridiculous to the more complex and nuanced provisions that find a place in every single regulation or law, in every single domain, we need to begin to ask these questions around, why were they put into place? If we go from criminal to civil, what is the regulatory machinery and the enforcement machinery we have to solve those problems? Or what are the issues on which we want to go from criminal to no sanctions at all, where the question of, this should not even be an issue. And that also requires some thought. So I think I don't know enough about what is going on with Jan Vishwas bill in its implementation. I'm not a party to that. But since you asked about barriers, as a researcher, when I put my research hat on, that I think would be, on the knowledge side of things, I think that would be a barrier. That we need a lot more work and clarity on what enforcement machinery do you require, and what is it that is even an offense to begin with. So I'll stop.
Thank you so much. Swikruti?
Yeah, so answering your first part, the bizarre laws that I have come across. So one of the very recurring law that I personally found in our compendium, and the scholars present here would agree, was a lot of states have this begging law, anti-begging law. And initially, since our research basically focused on business laws, we sort of skipped through that because we thought this is a very socio-legal problem. What do we have to do with it? But then when it comes to, if you see the UP anti-begging law, then the definition of beggary includes people like fortune teller, people who are singing on the roads. So basically, begging includes people who are just trying to earn their livelihood and get by. So, I mean, why does such? And the penalty for that is imprisonment for 1 year for first time. If the offense repeats, then it's for 3 years straight. So I feel that was one of the bizarre law that we came across. Then coming to the second part, the barrier part, as Gautam sir and Renuka ma'am pointed out, copy pasting. We saw multiple acts. I don't know if it's lazy on the part of the lawmakers or what. There's always a general penalty clause, which is like, you know what, if anything you contravene this, any part of this act or rule that does not have any specific penalty mentioned, then you get a jail term of 6 months or 1 year. Then what happens as a result when it comes, if you see a warehouse act, if there's a mislabeling, if you, by chance, there's a procedural lapse where you fail to submit your book due to complete human error and unintentional for that matter, there's no mens rea in that, you get a jail term of 1 year. So bizarre, right? And then this is one of the barrier I feel. And then as Neeti ma'am was talking, there's a lot of liability that puts on the, that's put on the company. So I also saw in the laws dealing with companies specifically, there was this one provision where you put the liability on the company. Then there's a specific section that talks about, the liability also extend to the officers of the company beyond reasonable doubt, and the burden of proof is on them. I personally feel there should be reversal in the burden of proof, where it should be on the party who's bringing the claim rather than the officers of the company. So yeah.
Thank you. And with this, I think we have roughly 10-15 more minutes. So I open for Q&A. Anyone who wishes to ask any question, I think there will be volunteers with mic. Yeah, I can see a hand with the gentleman. That section also, yes. So I see 2 hands. I see 3 hands now, but I don't see any mic so far. एक ये ले लीजिए. My request will be, please introduce yourself and make sure it's a short, pointed question. Thank you.
My name is Vikrant. I hope I'm audible. Yeah. So I'm from EY. So my question to all panelists. So on one hand, we are saying that we have decriminalized many of the offenses which has been going for many, many years. But on the other hand, we see a few days ago that this particular bill coming in, where all the CMs and the functionary, all the elected parliamentarians and the people would be thrown into jail within 30 days of getting some kind of a punishment, which is being deemed as a serious offenses. So because all these CMs and all the parliamentarians they are an enabler of doing the business. On one hand, we are saying that we are bringing the Jan Vishwas Act, and on the other hand, we are tying the hands of all those people who are the enabler of doing the business.
Thank you. That's a very question. Should we take 2-3 questions and then answer? Yes.
Hi, I'm Sudhanshu from FED, Foundation for Economic Development. So for the Jan Vishwas bill, I specifically wanted to understand, in Jan Vishwas, what we are seeing is that government is now putting the burden of judiciary and shifting it to the administrative officers. So right now, before I could be put to jail, I would have to go before a judge, and judge would have to do, there would be a procedure. Now, an administrative officer is able to put fine on me, and I don't see any recourse in that. And in the Jan Vishwas bill, specifically in MP Chhattisgarh, as well as the union bill, there's no fixed mechanism on what happens to the aggrieved party. So I just wanted your views on that.
Thank you. And can we take the third question also?
Yes, I'm Manish Sharma. My basic question is that we are finding that the government is basically acting in a too much of a top-down approach. We are finding that, they are, for example, in Delhi and many places, they take away the land of slum dwellers, etc., without giving them adequate, land alternate, livelihoods, etc., which basically makes them too much over-compliant, while as far as rich are concerned, they get these lands at very, very, what you call at finance, at very low interest rates, and basically use it for as a sort of a commercial activity, or as a sort of speculative activity, rather than for what you call for basic living. So don't you feel that this is also very much against the lower strata of the society, which basically is very much what you call works and basically is able to make the city survive and the nation basically survive, due to so informal sector is basically being very much, the laws are very much against informal sector, rather than, so maybe the rich are able to give taxes, or for that matter, but they are still not able to, the lower strata is basically being very much, what you call, is treated very unfairly in this country. Thank you.
Okay, we take the fourth question also.
My name is Sanjeev Kumar. I come from JNU. Right now I am working in the Y20 working group. So there is a pink hydrogen that is more talking about. Government is also, the Narendra Modi is also talk about the pushing for the pink hydrogen, and green hydrogen is already going on. But if they talk about the pink hydrogen, then again come with the waste material. Again there is a law and regulation that is have for the nuclear waste that is going on. So where we are stuck. We launched the program. We are going to produce hydrogen by nuclear energy, but we come with as downward we come, and as we find that the system there is some problem, and the process is delaying, and then another country come, like if we check China, if we take US, they are producing, they are going with that. Japan is going with that. So where we are stuck, why we are in the down, and the government is pushing for that. So where we are stand on that position.
Okay, thank you. Who would like to respond to Any one or all?
Your thing about penalties, I'm completely in tune with you. I think we need a sub-provision where some kind of educating mechanism can be inserted into the manner in which the penalty is invoked. My only skepticism to that point is, suppose the penalty is, just for the sake of a discussion, 1 lakh rupees. I'll pay more to a lawyer to sort of evade that penalty, then it'll be far easier for me to pay the penalty and move on. So I think on the issue of fairness, I agree with you, and this is something I have also raised. Let's not be blinded by decriminalization. Decriminalization is important, but let's not remove the adjudication process in the penalty or fine, howsoever they choose to word it. So I'm fully with you. All the other questions are beyond the scope of this particular discussion.
I would agree. I just want to add to what Gautam has said, and on the question of penalties. Maybe there's some learning that we can do from the financial sector, where the regulators impose penalty, but they can be challenged at the appellate tribunal. And if this process works, so in better jurisdictions than ours, there are process manuals that help officers arrive at penalty values. So it's not a number that just comes out of thin air. If you look at SEBI also has provisions on how will you decide the quantum of penalty and what are the factors that go into arriving at the quantum of penalty, and the order has to be in the public domain for people to analyze whether the penalty was calculated correctly. So one is, in this whole Jan Vishwas space, that's one place where we should certainly make an effort on how we even arrive at the quantum. At the second, if you can challenge this penalty at some appellate tribunal or court, then over time, if the regulator is able to hold its ground, or whichever department in this particular case, that sets some precedent for continuously challenging again. I mean, one place where India is so broken is that everything gets challenged, and all challenges get accepted in court, and that cycle continues. And so we've not been able to set that precedent where something gets thrown out because there is no case for a challenge, or the regulator, if it gets challenged all the time, is so embarrassed that it goes back and then improves the way it calculates its penalties. Both sides are broken in India. At least I'm very familiar with the financial sector space, and that's probably where we need to put in our effort, both in finance and in other domains, on this question of penalties and how we arrive at them.
Just a quick side note on that. Firstly, we should not think that because administrations have power to put a penalty, they'll do it something wrong or arbitrarily. And there's also something called administrative hearing and administrative justice. There's a whole, concept of administrative law. Our ma'am is sitting here. She has been an expert on that, teaching at NLU Delhi and so many JNU for many years. So they do follow the, the process of law, and justice has to be seen to be done. Second thing is, you're very young right now, but at my age, there used to be something called, when you were caught with the license over speeding, they'll take your license, and then we had to go to the court to get the license off. Now that has been done because they said, okay, let's not make it like a criminal, we have a compounding, that's a compounding penalty. Now you can deal with it by paying a fine. So yes, the fine has to be reasonable, as sometimes fine has to be more deterrent, especially in case somebody talked about factories which deals with harmful substance. So there has to be a rationality, let's put it that way, there has to be a rationality in law that we do. And so we should not think that administration getting power is wrong. And yes, there has to be a sense, there has to be scope for appeal. That's the essence of any law. That, justice, there has to be non-dual trumpetum, you have to be here. Once I was I was ticketed for overspeeding and driving in a bus lane in the UK. I appealed as a citizen. Laws are very clear in plain English. I wrote they dismissed my appeal. But at least there was a provision for appeal. Secondly, laws have to be simplified. In England, it came in 1960s, 70s, it's called plain English movement, where all the laws which were in Latin or very complex English has been now simplified. और हमारे यहाँ भी विधि के द्वारा एक काम हुआ था जिसमें बोला गया कि उसका एक सिंप्लीफिकेशन होना चाहिए लॉ का. अब हिंदीकरण भी होना चाहिए, बट शुद्ध हिंदी, क्लिष्ट हिंदी कितने लोग बोल पाते हैं? सो इट हैज़ टू बी बोल चाल की हिंदी. You know, like it cannot be very क्लिष्ट हिंदी कि हम यूपी, मध्य प्रदेश और नॉर्थ इंडिया will be able to, but I don't know next generation कितनी क्लिष्ट हिंदी बोल पाते, कितना सुन, क्योंकि जो विधि जो है वो काफ़ी कॉम्प्लेक्स है. विधि की लिखा, इट्स वेरी कॉम्प्लेक्स. Even a lawyer, I've done like 25 years in law, I can't understand fully. So law जो है simplified English/Hindi में आपको उसका वो होना चाहिए. So I think there's a lot to be done alongside. These are peripheral but very peripheral issues, but goes to the core of implementation of the vision of what we want to achieve. So yeah.
Great, thank you very much. Any other question? Sure, can we take the mic please?
Decriminalization in a country where there is no fear of law. So how bizarre could that be? Abhi criminalization hai, which is kind of scary as you all highlight, and decriminalize करना चाहिए, trust होना चाहिए. I wonder, ma'am, आपकी वो जो London, UK की जो cute little shop अगर यहाँ हो, तो पेस्ट्री और वो तो जाएगा, दरवाजे खिड़की भी यहाँ पे जाएंगी, that's for sure. So in a country where, I mean, complex we've been, overpopulated, we have a lot of excuses and which are all kind of true also. But abhi criminalization hai, the real estate, RERA hai, and there is no fear of the law at all, and there's still, so I mean, should we go this way or should we have more stringent law? I mean, anyone's guess, yeah, thank you.
So it's not a zero sum. In our, we addressed this question in our report, and our conclusion was that we do not have to decriminalize every provision. All the 26,134 provisions don't have to be decriminalized. There are some, for instance, harm to harm to life or limb, harm to the environment, danger in food safety, and so on. There are these where you need a little excessive oversight, and perhaps these are crucial. Fraud, not lack of knowledge, but fraud with intent. These have to be, these may carry criminal provisions. We left it out for the parliament to debate, or for all of us to debate. So nowhere it's not a zero sum that you remove all or you retain all. We are saying let's apply our minds and rethink a 21st century India headed towards 2047 as a Vikasit nation, Vikasit Bharat, and reframe, rethink, and not just rewrite the laws, keeping, no law is an enabler. Law always scratches you. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a smart lawyer here who could say, at the end of this discussion, all of us should be jailed. We are not jailed because nobody wants us to be in jail right now. We haven't heard them enough. But I'm nowhere, and I hope nobody else is also thinking in this manner that we decriminalize every provision. So I think we need that nuance, and we leave it to Parliament and the judiciary to write.
Thank you. With this, we come to a closure of this wonderful discussion. And at the end, I would only say a couple of points. One, it's not only about decriminalization, but also rationalizing many of the laws and provisions. What part of the law should regulate, control, to what extent or not. And second, there are already some lived experiences from around the world, and therefore we can capitalize on the learning. Ultimately, all of these things have to translate into not just ease of doing business, but ease of living. And then finally, our ultimate goal has to be quality of life for all the citizens. And if decriminalization or rationalization or reviewing existing legislation has to be done with that purpose, ultimately the idea is how do we provide quality of living to all the citizens in the country. And this also reminds me, this wonderful report published by Fraser Institute in Canada, the Economic Freedom Index. And over a period of time, the key insights clearly have been that there is strong correlation between economic freedom and the prosperity, right? And if you look at the top 10 countries or bottom 10 countries and you find the disparities and you see where you see the rule of law and limited governance and regulatory reforms and all of these ideas. And therefore, when we are drafting the law, we need to think that should we continue with the same existing approach of deterrence, right? Because we have lack of capacity to regulate or enforce or whatever. So deterrence is the key. Or we can finally move towards trust-based governance and trusting the people and citizens that they are good beings. They want to do good for themselves, for the family and the society and country and environment and everyone. With these thoughts, I bring closure to this panel discussion. Thank you to each of my panelists. Thank you very much. Yes, we can have a louder clapping for the contribution. Thank you.
I would like to extend my gratitude to all the panelists, and definitely everyone in this room would move ahead with new ideas, and especially the ones who worked on this compendium and further new ideas to look into. Now I'd request Dr. Amit to facilitate our panelists with a small token of appreciation. Guys, can we have a huge round of applause for our panelists? Once again, thank you to all our panelists, and we love to have you join us for the further order of the day.
After this rich discussion, it is only fitting that we take a moment to recognize the scholars who made this research possible. Behind this compendium is the dedication of our Researching Reality scholars. Today, we celebrate them. May I invite our scholars on stage for the felicitation ceremony, and for felicitating them, I call upon all panelists on stage. Yes. We would be calling our scholars alphabetically. So our first scholar is Adya Bharti. Adya Bharti is an economics undergrad at Hindu College, University of Delhi, with a minor in political science. Her academic interests lie in institutional economics and behavioral public policy, exploring how governance frameworks influence economic and social outcomes. She is passionate about evidence-based, citizen-centric reform and views trust as a key variable in governance.
I'm just your assistant.
Next, we have Animesh Sabath. Animesh is a first-year economics undergrad at Hindu College, University of Delhi, with a deep interest in institutional economics, public law, and political theory. His work explores the intersection of classical liberal thought, moral philosophy, and quantitative analysis. He's passionate about trust-based governance and legal reform, and he aims to develop alternatives to criminalization through civil liability and restorative models. Our next scholar is Ankit Shubham. Ankit Shubham is a law student at the Faculty of Law, University of Delhi, passionate about research, public policy, and legal studies. Hailing from Jharkhand, he pursued his undergrad degree at the University of Delhi, a national level quiz winner and an avid researcher. Ankit hopes to examine socio-legal and policy issues through a bottom-up approach encompassing dignity, empathy, and freedom. Next scholar is Chetna Anjali. Chetna Anjali is a gender studies scholar currently pursuing her master's at IIT Delhi with a bachelor's in social sciences from TIS. Her interdisciplinary foundation spans political science, sociology, and economics with a focus on feminist critiques of law and policy. Through research and her podcast, Gendering Climate, she challenges dominant policy narratives centering care, justice, and structural critique in governance discourse. Next scholar is Chetna Rani, a political science graduate from Hindu College, Delhi University, currently pursuing a master's at JNU. She's deeply passionate about gender studies, local governance, and social equity. Her research spans feminist critiques and digital justice. Skilled in qualitative methods and digital content creation, she aims to pursue a career in academia and policy grounded in empathy, rigor, and trust-based governance. Our next scholar is Gunter Daniel Das. He's a postgraduate scholar in public policy and governance at MIT University with a strong foundation in international relations, development, and governance reform. With interests in conflict resolution, institutional delivery, and global cooperation, Gunter aims to bridge the gap between research and real-world application. Next, we have Harshali Beni. Harshali Beni is pursuing a BSc in economics at the Gokhale Institute of Politics and Economics, where her interests bridge artificial intelligence and trade economics. Curious and intellectually agile, she brings a data-informed yet human-centric lens to policy research. Our next scholar is Ishant Sharma. Ishant Sharma, a recent graduate from NLU Punjab with a specialization in constitutional law, blends legal expertise with interdisciplinary research. He has interned with top law firms and policy think tanks like WITHI, contributing to projects on decriminalization and compliance. Our next scholar is Lavanya Mitra. She's a postgraduate in political science and international relations from JNU with field experience in urban nutrition, disability rights, and inclusive governance. Through her work, she remains curious about examining how policing and municipal bylaws perpetuate exclusion and to co-develop community-based solutions for the marginalized urban youth. Next, we have Manan Singh. Manan Singh pursued a BA Honours in Liberal Arts and Humanities with a major in history from OP Jindal. Okay. Manan Singh has not joined us. We'll go to our next caller. Neera Sharma, she's a political science student with aspirations in international development with inclusive policy making. Her interests span intersectionality, gendered perspectives on public health, and climate change. As a CPL fellow and founder of Project Patchwork, she fosters discourse on identity and policy. Our next scholar is Nikita Bhandari. She is a master's student in sociology at the Delhi School of Economics with a background in history from Miranda House. Her research focuses on space, technology, and marginality, explored through qualitative methods and fieldwork. Next, we have with us Ramon Das. Ramon Das is an economics undergrad at St. Stephen's College with a keen interest in governance, institutional trust, and inclusive development. Through interdisciplinary engagement, she aims to contribute to justice-oriented, evidence-based policy that empowers rather than penalizes marginalized communities. Our next scholar is Sakshi Niranjan. She's an economics undergrad with a growing interest in public policy, particularly its impact on women-led microenterprises. With a strong foundation in development economics and commitment to field-based inquiry, she seeks to bridge the gap between policy intent and on-ground realities. I would request the audience to keep applauding for them. They have worked for this day and night. Our next scholar is Shashank Acharya. He holds a bachelor's in economics from Christ University and a master's in political science from the University of Delhi. A UGC junior research fellow, he has published in reputed journals and worked on research with the Center for Global Studies. With hands-on experience in community work and stakeholder research, Shashank seeks to deepen his policy expertise. Next scholar is Shubhangi Yadav. She's an economics undergrad at Hindu College, University of Delhi, with a strong interest in public policy, development economics, and visual storytelling. With design skills and research experience at the Center for Civil Society, she aims to merge creativity with policy thinking, striving for change, rooted in sincerity, quiet leadership, and human dignity. Next scholar is Swikruti Mohanty. She's a BBA LLB graduate from NLU Odisha and has cultivated a strong interest in competition law, tech policy, and structural legal reform. Her research explores legal frameworks, power asymmetries, and governance reform. Passionate about simplifying commercial laws and fostering fair compliance, she aims to shape an inclusive regulatory landscape. And at last, we have Tapasya Srivastava. Though she's not here, her sister would be accepting this on her behalf. Tapasya is an electronics and communication engineering graduate from JP University, Madhya Pradesh, with a deep passion for public policy and development. After 6 years of preparing for the civil services examination, she transitioned to policy research, completing certificate program with CCET and YLAC. Yeah, so let's give a big round of applause to all our scholars. Their hard work and dedication have truly made this compendium possible. We deeply appreciate the commitment and passion each of you has brought to this research. Thank you for shaping this milestone. Along with our scholars, we also recognize the Researching Reality team who mentored and supported them all along the way.
Last but not the very least, we'd also like to felicitate Dr. Kansha Bisoi, who's been our volume editor for the compendium. Kansha, we could please have you on stage.
Thank you, Dr. Chandra. Now, to conclude this segment, may I now call upon Ms. Ishita Gambhir, consultant at CCS, to deliver the vote of thanks.
Good evening, everyone. On behalf of Center for Civil Society, it is my privilege to extend a heartfelt thanks as we conclude the first half of today's formal proceedings. First and foremost, I would like to thank our keynote speaker, Dr. Jivisha Joshi, for her insightful address that set the tone for today's discussions. We are equally grateful to our distinguished panelists, Dr. Neeti Shikha, Renuka Sane, Gautam Chikermane, and Swikruti Mohanty, for sharing their diverse experience and views on decriminalization of development. A special word of appreciation goes to our CEO, Dr. Amit Chandra, for guiding the discussion with insight and ensuring that it remained both engaging and thought-provoking. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank Nitesh Anand for welcoming us all, to acknowledge the tireless efforts of the Researching Reality team. And now I would especially like to thank Vagmi Sharma for her key role in steering the RR Compendium and guiding the 23 research scholars whose intellect, tireless efforts, and commitment to rigorous research has culminated in the impactful compendium that we have launched today. Finally, I would also like to thank you all for your time and for your continued support to CCS in our journey for enhancing social change through public policy. Thank you all, and yeah, hoping to see you in the next session.